Welcome to the FromTheBackTees Podcast. I'm Zach Pencer. With me, as always, we got Nolan T. Smith, and we got a new guest host with us who will be joining, Brett Wolvert. He'll be taking over for Jerry, who unfortunately had to leave for brighter pastures at Bandon Dunes. And then with us today, we got a big guest. We got PGA Tour agent Nick Biesecker. How's it going, Nick?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you mentioned before you actually know both Reed and Mark Hubbard, who we actually had on the podcast the first time. So I guess, could you give us like a quick 2-minute pitch on how you got into being in the agent game?
Yeah, people often ask me, were you a lawyer? How did you end up in the business? That sort of thing. And it really is one of those getting to meet people, right place, right time. I tell everyone I go back, I was fortunate enough to grow up and have a decent junior golf career. I got recruited and played college golf at SMU during a period when Hank Haney decided he wanted to be a college golf coach for about 5 years. So that was an interesting experience. And I played my first PGA Tour event when I was a junior in college at the Byron Nelson. And then played, at the time, what was a Nike Tour event at Sedgefield, where they play the Wyndham Championship now. And I was 21 years old, and Sergio Garcia was making his first start in the U.S. I think he was 17 or 18 at the time, and we were the two amateurs in the field. And I joked that our careers sort of diverged after that. I did the mini tour thing for about 3 years, did 3 times a Q school after college. I thought it would be very easy, and I couldn't be my fraternity social chairman and go out and drink 6 or 8 Coors Lights and get up the next day and compete. I was traveling with guys like Chad Campbell and Vaughn Taylor and Zach Johnson and Ryan Palmer and, guys who went on to have a great deal of success. And they just approached it as a business a little bit differently. And so for me, I ended up, one thing led to another. I had a chance to get in to working on the equipment side of the industry. I worked for about 4 years for Bridgestone Golf, overseeing all of their tour operations. So I got a chance to learn the business side of things and work with every agent. And one thing led to another. I became a partner in an agency called Blue Giraffe Sports in 2007, and I was an equity partner until 2018. And we just decided to kind of go separate ways. And I was fortunate enough to have some clients that wanted to come with me, including Mark Hubbard, and launched my company, Resolute Sports, at that time. And have kind of grown to kind of be a little bit of a boutique business, but it's something that I was fortunate enough that last year, of the clients that I work with, I had 3 that won on the Korn Ferry Tour, and 4 guys that I work with that all graduated to the PGA Tour. So it's an interesting ride. There are ups and downs, and certainly everyone knows the movie Jerry Maguire and thinks that's how it always is, and it's just no 2 days are ever alike.
That's an incredible success rate you got there.
Well, I wish that I could be the one to take all the credit for it, but my role is to be in the background, and I don't need to be the guy out front. And a lot of times it's just being there to support guys and be a sounding board sometimes, or be a shoulder for them to lean on when they're struggling and that sort of stuff. When guys are playing well and having success at any level, it's easy. But when you've gone out and you're missing cuts and you're on the road for weeks at a time, it's tough.
Yeah. How did you first get your first chance in working with a player?
Well, I was very fortunate. As I said, during my time at Bridgestone, I worked with some great players that we had. I had a chance. I originally signed Brant Snedeker out of college. There at Bridgestone, I had I was there when we signed Fred Couples, so I got some really cool experience working with him and Paula Creamer, but I really developed a very close relationship with Stuart Appleby, and through the course of things, Stuart had left IMG as his management company in the early 2000s. Had a gentleman who he was working with, and when I kind of told him what I was doing, he had met the guys from Blue Giraffe, and he essentially said, "All right, well, I'm gonna go with you." And so I was fortunate enough to kind of have someone like that to jumpstart my career. And here we are still together working, almost 14 years later. And our careers have both continued to roll on in different paths. And he'll be 49 next month. And so yeah, so that's kind of how I got started with my first player.
That's pretty cool. So SMU, Hank Haney, that is a rare situation there to have Hank Haney as your college golf course, considering he really didn't do it for very long, like you were saying. That must have been quite a little interesting ride there.
It was really interesting. I mean, for me, I grew up in a small town and went away on a recruiting trip, and it was a beautiful early spring day in Dallas, and SMU has a lot of beautiful co-eds, so it didn't take much convincing on that part. And at the time, I believe Hank had been the PGA Teacher of the Year in '93, and I was graduating high school in '94. So I thought, wow, if I want to play the tour, I need to be around a guy like this. And I mean, Hank, I realize now, being older and in my 40s, and realize what he was trying to accomplish with us, that as guys who are 18, 19, 20 years old, we all thought we knew everything in the world. That's how we are as guys at that age. And, we probably didn't learn from him as much as we could, but he was hard on us in a way that he had to be. And we ended up having some great players come through during that time that a number of us has gone on to have success and remained in the industry. He coached at the time Hank Haney, who went on to win the U.S. Amateur in 1998 from the Dallas golfing family of Tripp and Hank and Kelly Keeney. So Hank was a teammate of mine. Josh Gregory, who went on to coach Augusta State, most notably with Patrick Reed and Henrik Norlander, who are both on the PGA Tour. He coached them at Augusta State to back-to-back national championships, and before he returned to coach at SMU for a while, and now he's a very successful instructor on the PGA Tour. And two of my other former teammates have gone on to be active in the program at SMU coaching. One of them, Jason Enlow, took over after Josh left at SMU, and Chris Parr was the assistant coach. And recently, Jason stepped down to take a job in the financial world and focus a little bit more on his family. And Chris was just named last week officially as the head coach. So it's one of those things that for me, it was a tremendous opportunity. And I learned a lot from Hank in that experience, not just about golf, but about life.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hank Haney's a pretty divisive character these days. Was he kind of like that back then? Or, I mean, obviously all I know is how he's perceived in the media.
Yes. And I think that's part of it. Of as I said, I get along great with Hank now, and he is very blunt in his approach and his thinking and how he approaches people. So as a 19 and 20-year-old kid, you sometimes don't understand that. We didn't understand where he was coming from. And honestly, I think he was way ahead of things in college golf coaching as far as trying to get us to approach it as a business, which it obviously is very much a business these days. And, he was hard on you. He would give you a talking to when you missed a green on the short side of wanting to know what you were thinking. And he was looking at things statistically on hitting greens and two putts and lag putting and a lot of things that now people are looking at analytically. I think he had a great insight into. I think, unfortunately, he didn't understand how to deal with 18 and 19-year-old guys, and we didn't understand how to deal with him. If we had probably had a little bit better communication skills between us, there's no telling what we could have done.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. I actually, I played in college for a couple years, so I can understand. I showed up hungover to maybe one or two qualifiers in my day, so I kind of understand that dichotomy between the coach that wants you to take it like a business and 18, 19-year-old kids who want to have a future.
That's right. It was funny. We would do some things where we had putting competitions. At the time, I believe we had 12 players that we carried on the roster on our team. Obviously, not everyone was on scholarship. A couple were on academic scholarships. And we would do these break up into teams and do these kind of skills competitions. And at the time, Hank had his 9-hole golf course there north of Dallas, the Hank Haney Golf Ranch, which was the hardest 9-hole golf course you would have ever played. Unfortunately, it's been built over into homes, but it was a 9-hole Pete Dye golf course, 4 par 3s, 4 par 4s, a par 5, par 33. And, we would play it and 18 holes. And there were times where you'd struggle to break 70 and just tough golf course. But we would do these skills, and sometimes it would be, okay, well, the team that wins in this putting competition doesn't have to do anything. The team that finishes second has to run to the back of the driving range and back to the putting green. And the team that loses has to run the property line. So, this is back in the 90s, and we were wearing FootJoy Classics. So when someone tells you, hey, go run, your spiked FootJoy Classics at that time were not exactly, comfortable New Balance or something on your feet running a mile property line or whatever it was.
That's pretty rare to see, I'm sure. I don't think many golf coaches had their players running for golf practice.
Especially golfers too.
That's exactly right. So it was a great experience. And I look back on it, and for all the things, and having played college golf, you understand, I think everyone goes into it with these great expectations. It's going to be this amazing experience. And I think for some players it really is, but it also, it's tough. And sometimes it doesn't live up to the expectations. And you go from the competition of junior golf and loving the game to kind of the forced practice and expectations that it's tough for you to shoulder sometimes. And not everyone does the best job doing it. I think that's where you have some ups and downs, and you see some kids burn out, and you have some that come along and they need the structure and they have tremendous success from it.
Right on.
Yeah, so now it's obviously a very different time in the world. How have you been handling things? First of all, is the beard a quarantine beard, or is it all year round beard?
Well, I've had a beard for several years. I think I can't even remember what year. I just decided I wasn't going to shave one week when I was pheasant hunting in South Dakota, and I came back and I just kept it. And I will admit that I have barely trimmed it through the quarantine. I just kind of said, well, I'm not having to go really meet with anyone or do much in person. So I think this might be one of the few times anyone has seen it. So
little did you know.
It's grown out a little bit thicker. But yeah, so this time it's really a unique time in the world, in sports, and in golf. And I was at the Players Championship, and to see how quickly things could turn from, we had our annual player managers meetings on Tuesday, and obviously everyone was asking, what are we doing, this sort of stuff. And the tour, hey, we're on pace, we're going to play, we're not worried, we've been in touch with the World Health Organization, we've been in touch with the CDC, here's our plan, just get guys to minimize contact with spectators, no autographs, all of this. I show up at the course on Thursday morning, and the message is no spectators are going to be allowed in after noon today. We're going to play starting tomorrow with no spectators. And obviously by that afternoon, it was changing. And really, I think a lot of it had to do with what some of the other leagues were doing, and just how quickly some of this stuff was happening. And so I was lucky enough. I changed my flight from Friday and got out of Jacksonville on Thursday night. But it really just changed quickly. And right now, everyone has been in such a holding pattern. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we come out of this. And hopefully with some of the dates that we're looking at, with the tour has announced coming back in June, and hopefully we're able to get back and bring some entertainment at least. And it doesn't diminish what's going on from a health perspective or anything like that. But, we need sports. And I think it shows how much people miss it, with what we've been watching of reruns and that sort of stuff. So
sure, I think it's crazy.
Motorsports is going into virtual racing and doing what they're doing with NFL draft tonight. People love sports, and it's an important part of our life. And this is the first time it's really been taken away from us.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's crazy that some people are getting mad at all these people saying we should bring back sports. Like, obviously, number one, we care about the health of people, and then assuming that is all good, then let's get some golf going, because that also helps a lot of people.
It does. When you look at it, the industry of golf and how large it really is, when you think about the number of people that this impacts, from, we've seen these caddy relief programs that were launched at LA Country Club and Riviera, and the Outpost Club did, and others across the country, Pinehurst, Kiowa. You think about that on the local level. You think about the kid who might come home from college and caddy on the weekends, or Evans scholars, up to the guys like Reed working on the PGA Tour. every club employs a lot of people, and that revenue goes back into the communities. And you look with the PGA Tour not competing, there's so many charitable dollars from ticket sales and other things that go back into these communities. So it's lost, and it's across the board, and no one is immune to this. Whether you were the CEO of a corporation or a waiter, it has affected everyone equally. I was on the phone earlier today with some folks at the Greenbrier discussing some things there from the tournament going away, and it's all part of it. And looking at that, there's a massive resort that's shut down. They still have to maintain the golf courses, they have to maintain the hotel, and that takes money. But you're having no revenue coming in. And fortunately, I think the number of golf courses that remain open is a good sign. I've seen more people now playing golf than ever, it seems, at some of these courses. So I think it could be actually very good for the game of golf when we come out of this. And not to say the timing of it is great, but I look at it alone with some of my clients. Cameron Percy on the PGA Tour, he had dealt with some wrist problems on the West Coast and had to miss some events, and had found out just the week prior to the Players Championship that his doctor had told him, look, you need to take at least 2 to 3 weeks off to rest your wrist. So it came at a good time for him. Henrik Norlander was due to have a baby in the week or two after the Players Championship, so he was going to miss a week or two at minimum. So now he hasn't missed those events. It's unfortunate for maybe some of the guys further down that were Korn Ferry graduates that haven't gotten into as many events and things like that, but the tour's trying to work around it, and everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah. What do you think about, it seems like we kind of have our first sight of what might be happening here soon in the potential, I don't know what you want to call it, the match 2.0 coming up with Tiger, Phil, Brady, and Manning. What do you think obviously I think that's a good sign. And I think it's been rumored that it'll be in Florida, which we all know that the governor down there has been pretty open to trying to get sports back and going, because they know it's a big cog in the economy and something that'll probably help the morale more than anything else. Have you seen the whisperings of that going on?
Yeah, obviously there were some announcements today. You've seen some stuff where some of the players shared things on social media with Phil Mickelson and Tiger and others looking at that, having the announcement it would be coming on TNT sometime in the next month. All of those things, and I think it's tremendous. And the fact that golf can engage with Hall of Fame football players and bring two of the greatest golfers, obviously, of all time together with two of the greatest quarterbacks, and Peyton Manning is a part owner and an investor in Sweetens Cove Golf Club in Tennessee. So anyone that's an architecture buff understands that. He's a member at the Honor, so he obviously is very passionate about the game. So I think it will be a really, really interesting experience and be much greater than what the initial match was with just Phil and Tiger. I think there were a lot of people that walked away with that maybe with kind of an empty feeling, but hopefully we get a little bit more smack talk here and a little bit more interaction between everyone. So I think it could be really cool. I don't know anyone that wouldn't watch it.
Brady and Phil seem pretty outspoken over Twitter so far. So
yeah, exactly.
I hope it continues. And I hope this might be a sign for the future that during the off season, maybe we'll see more of these matches set up to keep the interest in golf, maybe.
Absolutely. And I think that when you look at the timing of all this, everyone is so used to seeing football or hockey or baseball. Every other sport has a clear defined off season. And we've gotten into it now where with the wraparound seasons on the PGA Tour and on the European Tour, we never are lacking for golf. We're never lacking to see the stars that we want to see. You can find it in, November, December, or January when it's cold and everyone's stuck at home. They can find golf to watch. You go back 20 plus years ago, and the only thing that you got was after the Tour Championship was the Skins game. You might get to stay up late at night and watch the events from Australia. But, having this break, having it happen in a time of the Masters where Tiger was coming in to defend and people were such anticipating it, I think that's part of the reason there might be such a hunger for it coming out of it. And with so many people working remotely and golf courses being one of the few activities that you can do. You can't go to your gym and do CrossFit anymore. You can't go and take your kids for a travel baseball game and some of this stuff. I think that people are maybe rediscovering it a little bit. And I see more people out playing with their kids and some of these things. So it's a lot going on. And I think something like the match coming at this time when people are thirsty for sports and we're missing golf for the first time, it could be great. I mean, I can only imagine what the ratings numbers might be like.
Yeah, it's a rare opportunity, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I know they haven't announced a golf course or anything like that, but talking about being in Florida and, you know, potentially let's look at it if Michael Jordan hosted his course at Grove 23. I mean, think about that and what that brings, and, you know, all of the parts that play into that. And I'm sure that with the number of other players living in South Florida, you might see a Ricky Fowler or a Justin Thomas out there as a spectator and staying obviously in a safe social distance, but you might get some of that.
Yeah, those guys.
Have you been watching any of that MJ documentary?
I think everyone has to. It's something that it doesn't matter what generation you are. Everyone loves Jordan. I think everyone can identify with him in some way, whether you watched him play in college when he started his career or at the end of his career. And he's someone just like Tiger that truly shaped the direction of the NBA. Same way that Tiger shaped the change in the tour. So it's hard not for anyone to be inspired by that and want to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of Tiger, got to ask this question. You were the Bridgestone tour manager.
Yes.
And everyone knows that Bridgestone made Nike's ball for pretty much as long as Tiger was playing it. Any interactions with Tiger?
You know, it's interesting. At that time, I think there were only two people in the world that truly knew what the golf ball was that Tiger was playing. There was a gentleman named Rock Ishii, who is a ball engineer.
Yeah.
Now Rock is with Callaway. He was a Japanese ball engineer with Bridgestone. And when Nike got into the business, they hired Rock away with a couple of other Bridgestone ball engineers. And so they worked exclusively with Nike, and on the manufacturing side with Bridgestone out of Japan. We had no interaction at the time of anything. But, you know, it was really interesting because at that time we had Shigeki Maruyama, we had Nick Price still playing, and Tom Watson was playing the golf ball, and Justin Leonard played the golf ball at that time, and Fred Couples and Stuart Appleby. And I joined the company when it was still branded as Precept, and we were coming out of the success of the Lady Precept ball. And it was during the time that Bridgestone changed its branding from Precept to Bridgestone Golf in North America. And I remember going to Ireland to the World Golf Championship event in south of Dublin to do ball testing with Stuart Appleby. Because we were in a position, we were coming down to the line of what are we going to do in getting the initial B330 golf ball off the ground and running. And, you know, timing wise, he was going back to Australia. He was playing in South Africa, I believe, before Australia. And it was kind of going to be, when are these golf balls going to be available in a prototype phase? And when can you go and test? And it was a touch and go of where are you going in the world to do ball testing? So there was a lot of really cool stuff, and people don't think about it. We had, you know, different golf balls because of being a smaller company and having a unique staff. You know, Stuart Appleby had his golf balls all with his logo on them. Nick Price played double zeros that had Nick on the side. Shigeki Maruyama played tour stage golf balls that were unique from Japan. And, you know, everyone had custom gloves that were cut to match their hand, and they may have a different cuff on them and a different Velcro enclosure. And the only way you knew the difference was, you know, with the initials on the inside on a special tag for each of them. And you think about, here's this huge company, we would sometimes be looking at it and the inventory would come in and we'd be back in what we called our tour cage, where we kept all the tour product, and it'd be like, okay, well, we only have 6 dozen of Shigeki's balls left. When are these coming from Japan? Or we only have a dozen of these gloves left. And so it was a unique experience, because I never forget one thing was I always thought when I was playing professionally and in college, and I was sponsored by Precept when I turned professional. And I always thought, look, they don't really care. It's a big company. All these golf clubs they give away, they don't care about it. And I thought about it from when I would Monday qualify for events or got to play in Nike Tour or Web.com events. And I'm like, I don't understand why they can't just give me a driver or give me this, give me that. And when I went to work, I realized exactly how much inventory we pushed through. And I remember thinking, wow, this kid from this university is asking for another 3-wood. What hell happened to the other one he had? Why does he want it with a different shaft? And certainly things have changed now with the amount of equipment that's given away. But it was a unique experience and a great learning experience for me.
Yeah. Now, just to follow up, one question I had written down is, I know you still work intimately with players, obviously, but kind of what made you leave that and work and move on to the agent side of it? Because I'm not, I can't speak for the other two, but I mean, that would be a dream for me personally, working so intimately with tour players.
Yeah. I was very fortunate, as I said, to get to know some of these guys. And I think I developed great relationships with them. One, because I didn't put them on a pedestal. I realized they were normal guys. Yeah. I'm the first to admit I'm a club whore. I love golf clubs. I love working on clubs. I was in my basement earlier. A buddy of mine, I had a couple of wedges for him. He's like, can you do the loft and lies on these and get them back to me? I love all that stuff. So it was great. And it was fun at the time because when I started was right when Bridgestone was launching its first tour van. So being part of that and having that access, and as we were growing the club line in the U.S., it was a lot of fun. But, I go back to what I said. I made every mistake when I tried to play as a professional. And I didn't have someone providing guidance. Now, the business has changed in so many ways that more kids, when they come out of college, are looking for a management group or looking for someone to help provide guidance. And the path is clear of you're going to play McKenzie Tour, Latin America, China, hopefully get to the Korn Ferry, on to the PGA Tour. That at that time, it was organized gambling. We were playing the Hooters Tour, the Teardrop Tour, Adams Pro Tour, whatever you could play. And you were just waiting around until Q school. And I didn't really understand how to approach it as a business. So for me, being able to take the experience I had learning on the equipment side and really being on the sponsor side and being able to look at it from a player's perspective and what I had missed, being able to take that and have the chance to come in and work and have ownership in a company. To be honest, I wasn't Japanese, so I was never going to take on a leadership role at Bridgestone at that time. And, so it was kind of a time for me. And you see some guys that move around working for different equipment companies over the years, but that really wasn't where I wanted to hang my hat for the next 20 years. And I wanted to go and have something that I could own and be part of and continue that intimate work with players just in a different manner.
Yeah. One thing I know we've debated on the show a bunch, and I feel like you are the best person to answer this question. If you were to take, we'll say, Mark Hubbard, because you must know his game pretty well, and this is the ball he's using now, or you replace it with a ball you get from Walmart, how many shots does he lose on average?
It's how much it goes into the whole thing of how much practice does he get to have, what adjustments.
Assuming no practice. To take
I mean, honestly, you've got to look at it that if you're just pulling, and what you're going to buy at Walmart, depending on the brand, that sort of thing. Let's just say he's going to a Serlin, 3-piece golf ball. He's going to struggle with distance controls and struggle with some of these pitch shots. I would sit and say that, a tour player in that position, it could be anywhere from 1 to 5 shots. They may pick up something that they hit some drives that are a little bit longer. They may have some things where they hit a pitch shot that intentionally runs out. And it's a little easier than having to judge the spin. But, I think about really those shots where someone like Mark is so good around the green or with a wedge and just the distance control that those guys are able to dial things in with. I think that's where you would see the biggest difference. And I remember, when I played the Byron Nelson and I was a 20-year-old, I played one of the 2 rounds I played. I didn't embarrass myself. I shot 75-77 or 77-75, but I played with Joe Durant. I remember the second day I'm keeping his score and he shoots 65, and it was the easiest 65 I'd ever seen. He hit it close a few times, made those putts, made some 12-footers, made a couple of 20-footers, and next thing you know, he shoots 5 under. So, it's just how it is with those guys. They're all so good and so dialed in with different things, and with where the equipment is, everyone knows specifically what they're doing on that side. So it'd make a difference. I can't speak and say, hey, it's gonna cost him 5 shots, but I could see it making a significant difference for guys.
Sounds like for all those tour players out there listening right now that you got some good sabotage right here. Just throw some Kirkland signatures into your buddy's bag, but write a little Titleist logo right on top of that. And
didn't Bridgestone make the Kirkland signature for a little bit, I think?
I'm not going to go on the record here and say who made it. There's speculation. Some groups have looked at different things, and I saw some Kirkland balls when I was in Costco the other week, but I don't think it's the same as the original ball that came out. My understanding, and I think one of the most widespread rumors, is that they were potentially overrun TaylorMade balls, that they bought up excess TaylorMade inventory and branded as Kirkland, the original ball that that had such success.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think, potentially some of the tour preferred balls as they ran into the TP5 and TP5X initially a couple of years ago. So who knows? It's one of those unicorns out there that we may never know.
Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff. I got a question for you. So, an SMU alum, who are some of the notable other alums besides yourself that you think got some really good game? I think there's one that we all can think of right now. Is there some other guys we should know of though?
Well, it's funny. People don't realize this. And it's an amazing statistic, actually. SMU had 4 U.S. amateur champions within the last just over 22 years now. You had Hank Haney win it. We had Colt Knost win it, Kelly Craft, and Bryson DeChambeau. So when you look at that, that's amazing in its own right. So to have, guys who didn't all play on the team together and those types of things to kind of win in different generations, and for them all to continue to go on. And obviously Hank had probably didn't see the success that he had hoped in professional golf. He did make it to the PGA Tour. We just had Colt retire and go into broadcasting and podcast himself. But to see Kelly, to see what Bryson has done, I mean, it's amazing. You go back to Payne Stewart being one of the early guys and what he did. And so we have a great golf history. We're most well known for the death penalty and losing all of our sports because of football. Hey, someone had to dive on that grenade with the NCAA for so the other schools could benefit and keep paying players. But we had some great success over the years, and and then you add Harry Higgs, who is a rookie on the PGA Tour, and obviously a great personality, and the success that he's had. That I tell everyone within less than a year, he went from PGA Tour Latino America to the Korn Ferry Tour to the PGA Tour, and having a runner-up finish in Bermuda in less than a year. So he's there. There's another young player on the Korn Ferry Tour, Austin Smotherman, who's a great, hugely talented young player in his second season out there after playing in Latin America. And you're going to continue to see some other good players come out of there. Mac Meisner, who's on the team, who will be coming back as a senior. Noah Goodwin, who has played in the U.S. Open, a former top junior golfer who will be a senior. So we had a nice program, making a nice run, and we'll see what happens here in the future. But we've had some great players come through.
Yep, no surprise, man. That golf is just so deep wherever you look, I feel like. And like a Harry Higgs, we want to tell the Harry Higgs story to the world. So if you want to get a word in for us, we wouldn't mind that at all.
Yeah,
but you think Bryson DeChambeau, you think he's going to be the first one to hit 400-yard drives? That dude's
I was so disappointed.
I am surprised that the net I saw in his driveway with some of this stuff is still holding up with the XS 200 ball speed. Hey, I mean, we've seen 400 yards on tour in some freakish conditions, but people look at it and Bryson is approaching things in a very methodical way of different from other guys, but
very methodical.
Exactly. And so he's approaching things from a scientific standpoint, but you have all of these guys that are such great athletes. And when you look at the distance debate around the tour, Nick Faldo's a big guy, but he didn't hit it very far when he played on tour. And really, everyone has gotten longer. When you look at some of the longest hitters, they're not, Justin Thomas, he's lanky, but he's got speed and he plays the game in an athletic manner. But
Rory's 5'8", right?
Exactly. No, he's a little taller than that. But
yeah.
But you look at a Brooks Koepka. If Tiger, and that's where I think the true Tiger effect comes in. That now what is happening is you have generations. I remember when I was growing up and I quit playing football and I quit playing baseball to focus on golf, people act like, what the hell are you doing? And now everyone has grown up. Kids now have all seen Tiger the last 20 plus years having success. And parents have, pushed their kids into golf that maybe they would have played football. Brooks Koepka's father was a college baseball player and a pitcher. You look at him, he makes no bones about it that he's an athlete, and he could have played football, could have played baseball, could have been out there jacking home runs in spring training. Dustin Johnson was a hell of a basketball player. So you go down the list and you look at some of the things, Gary Woodland, you go and you look, and we've got better athletes across the board. And anytime you step on the range, you go and you just look at the physical size of these guys, and there's better technology in the golf swing and understanding what the club's doing. The clubs, the driver now is designed to, hit it high and hit it hard. So the idea of guys hitting at 400, it won't surprise me when it happens. Will it be Bryson? Maybe. Who knows? There's some of these kids out there that hit it so long. I remember Matt Wolff. I go back to, I'm lucky enough. I'm a reinstated amateur. I get to play a good bit of mid-am golf. And let's see, I guess this would have been almost 3 years ago. Matt Wolff was a senior in high school. It would have been 3 years ago, the end of March. And I get paired up with Matt Wolff playing at the Azalea at the Country Club of Charleston. And I don't hit it short. I've always been a long hitter. And on the first hole, I hit driver. This kid's got 3-wood. And I'm like, what the hell's he doing? He hits it past my drive. On the next hole, I hit 3-wood off this par 4, and he pulls his iron out and hits it past my 3-wood. And I had looked up. I knew, what a great junior player he was. And I just look and I go, what is that? And he goes, oh, it's, 3-iron, just a good 280 club. And I remember, I got to play with him for 2 days, and some of these drives he was hitting and things like that. And I'll never forget on the 10th hole there at the Country Club of Charleston, it's this beautiful little, it's a Seth Rayner designed course, held the U.S. Women's Open. 10th hole's a dogleg par 4. It's, anywhere from a hybrid mid-iron to a 3-wood and a wedge. And he's turned his 3-iron around the corner and has about 125 yards. And I look, and we're sharing a cart, and I see he's got this wedge, and he's swinging at it so hard. And I go, what are you doing? It was a lob wedge. And I remember telling him when we got finished and we're sitting in there having lunch, and I'm telling these other mid-am guys I'm playing with about this, because everyone had seen his swing and they're like, what's up with that? And, he was so polite, such a nice kid, and we had a great time. But I remember telling him, look, you've just got to get these wedges figured out. Whatever you're doing, don't change it. But when you figure out what you're doing, your speed with, you can't hit the same club from 120 that you're going to hit from 40 yards. You're going to have to figure out some of this with your wedges. And, he went to college and didn't have the breakout rookie year of what people would have thought as a freshman. And then, what he did as a sophomore and coming straight out on the PGA Tour and winning, it shows how good these guys are.
Yeah. I know, Brett, I know you had a question on the mid-am.
Oh, yeah. So I recently turned 25 years old.
All right.
And, so thinking about getting into the mid-am game. Now, I know you won the Virginia State mid-am back-to-back years. Was that 2009?
I think I won it in 08, 09, and 11. So 3 out of 4 years I had a chance to win, yeah.
Oh, wow. Good for you. Okay. Difference between, playing in, AMs, where you got, all the best college players and, probably guys that are going to play on the PGA Tour, and the mid-am. Like, because you've had some pretty good success, and I assume you're still playing in mid-am events?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, unfortunately, there have been some events that have been canceled. The Azalea was canceled. I normally go up to Garden City Golf Club in New York and play the Travis in May. It's been canceled. A couple of others. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about mid-am golf is all of us work. Even if, at 25 years old, you have day-to-day responsibilities, and not everyone gets to go out and grind for hours. People have children and wives and jobs and different things that that take away from it. But the guys who can play, I mean, there are a lot of guys who are reinstated professionals who played professionally for a year or two or 3 or 4 years, and you look at those guys and you look at someone like Stuart Hagestad, who's had success at the Masters and had success in the U.S. Open. Matt Parziali, who won the U.S. Mid-Am and was able to go and make the cut in a U.S. Open and that sort of thing. There are a lot of guys who are great players, and we sometimes figure it out a little bit more how to actually play golf as we get older than we did when we were younger and maybe were in better physical shape. I mean, for me, when I worked at Bridgestone, I didn't really enjoy playing golf for a while. I would play when I went to the British Open. I would take someone, we'd go the week before, play a lot of golf, but that was it. And I've had 2 shoulder surgeries, one on each shoulder, and that's really what kind of made me decide I wanted to get back into playing golf. And I've developed so many great friendships and relationships of guys that I see. It may only be once or twice a year, depending on the tournament or what it is. And you get to go play some great golf courses because of this stuff. And so it's a lot of fun. And whether you're competing at the state level and you get to interact with the guys at that level, or up to some of these great national events at places, the Thomas at LA Country Club, you have, everyone's known the Coleman at Seminole, you have the Crump Cup at Pine Valley, and, they're great players. And then, I'm fortunate enough, I'm a member at a club, Sunny Hannah Country Club in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And it's a great Tillinghast golf course. And the Sunny Hannah Amateur is probably one of the 2 most elite amateur events in the country. The Sunny Hannah, it falls usually around the week of the U.S. Open, but you go through and you look at past winners and guys that, I think they always give a T-shirt away to players. And last year's it was showing past participants who had I believe 1 majors or something. And it was just amazing. So you look at it of Tiger, Jason Day, Ricky Fowler won it back to back. You go down the list of these guys who have won it. And there are photos of Nicklaus playing and Palmer playing and all of these guys. And I think last year there were only 3 of us that were mid-ams playing. And I love going and playing and getting the chance to play beside some of these college kids, because from my side, from a business perspective, I'm getting to evaluate a game, and they're looking at me going, well, God, this guy actually can play the game. So it opens some doors in that perspective, but it's fun. I would, in a lot of ways, I would rather play against the college kids. I feel like it makes me play at a higher game. And, and there is, there's a big difference between teeing it up on Saturday morning at your home course with your buddies and shooting even par, and taking your game on the road and putting a tee in the ground, having to play by the rules, make every putt, and posting a score that everyone's going to see what you do. And, everyone's a little bit different. I mean, I think for me, I'm geared to the mindset I play better in tournament conditions than I do just out messing around. I think I don't know that I'm ADD, but my attention span on the golf course seems to have gotten shorter and shorter the older I get. So as we cross that 3-hour threshold in a round of golf, I start going, what the hell am I doing? I got to get out of here. I want to go do something else. Why am I waiting on this group? Can we hit into them? So I find myself, I'm certainly a lot more patient when I play amateur golf.
Really? Okay. Because I'm just getting to the point now where I'm not playing, 5-6 days a week like I could when I was in college, and I got to learn how to play good golf. Playing, once or twice a month.
Well, it's funny. I'll tell a story about that. I remember 2011 U.S. Mid-Am. I qualified for the U.S. Mid-Am. It was at Shadowhawk in Houston that year. I end up qualifying for match play. I believe it was my third round match. I paired up against Nathan Smith, who at the time had won. I mean, I can't even remember how many U.S. Mid-Ams Nathan's won at this point. But, you know, we were friends, and his dad's caddying for him, and his mom's out there watching. And this is in late September, I believe, that year. And, you know, Nathan had played the U.S. Amateur. He had played a Walker Cup. He had played, you know, some other stuff, and then rolls right into the Mid-Am. And I remember, you know, his mom is saying something about how much golf he's played. I said, well, my practice round was the first round of golf I had played in 4 weeks. You know, I've been running around and traveling to tournaments and doing this, and this, and working with clients, and I haven't had a chance to play in practice. And mine was showing up here. So it's kind of fun. And, you know, to make it to the third round and do that, I felt proud of myself. And,
Absolutely.
You know, I think I lost 2-1 to Nathan, you know, big deal. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what's great about it, is that we can all show up and compete, and especially with some of these being match play, you never know what's going to happen.
While we're still on your playing career topic, what about, you got to tell us about your experience at the Byron Nelson?
Oh, gosh. Well, I will go back.
You shot 2 rounds in the 70s.
I did. You know, I'll go back and I'll tell a couple of things about it. I was benched from playing at the NCAA regionals that week by Hank. So I had plans to be in Dallas.
There's a story behind that too.
Yes. Well, I had probably been a jerk at our conference tournament. I know I had, and we had butted heads since he benched me. But I had plans. I was still going to be in Dallas, so I signed up for the Monday qualifier. And at that time, it was 4 spots, 1 golf course. We had 208 guys in the qualifier. I'm in one of the last groups of the afternoon, and we're playing in a foursome. At the time, you could ride in carts in these qualifiers. On the very first hole, a guy in my group tops it, heel tops it left out of bounds into a yard. He shot, I have no idea, like 56 or something on the front 9. And I'm thinking, please to God, he's going to quit after the front. He makes an 11 on the 10th hole, which was a par 5. Makes, I believe, like an 8 or 9 on the 11th hole. And finally, he hits the ball out of bounds on the 12th hole. And the guys in the group are like, look, Nick's 400 par. He has a chance to qualify. Just quit. Go in. And so I qualified. I show up on Tuesday morning. I see Payne Stewart on the range, and he looks at me and he goes, Nick, what the hell are you doing here? And so it was just kind of a funny thing. And I got a chance to play a practice round with Tim Heron. And at the time, Tim had I won a little bit of money, I think, in our game that day between the guys. But I remember Tim going, man, I can't wait until I get on the Champions Tour. I can put my fat ass in a cart and smoke some cigarettes. And so, I've kidded him about that. We were together walking at Pebble Beach this year in a practice round with Henrik Norlander and Tim and George McNeil. And I said, Tim, I said, I'm not sure if you remember this exactly. And I had told it to him before, but I said, yep, now that you're going to the Champions Tour next week, I expect a little bit of that. So it was a great experience. It was, I don't know that I've ever been as nervous as I was, because at that time, the Byron Nelson was what the Phoenix Open is now, as far as being the party atmosphere in the 17th hole. And there was a big hill behind the 17th hole there at TPC Las Colinas that you were known, and players and caddies knew that there were, it was the place where the women in Dallas were walking around in their mini skirts and their heels. And we'll just say that a lot of them that sat there, along the walk path that you had to walk up the hill, were sitting there without their undergarments in mini skirts. And it was known, you were known to look for that.
Allegedly.
So,
allegedly.
We had a little something.
it was one of those things.
We had a little something down at Oregon State University that was deemed HOLEHILL.
I've heard of it.
Okay. It's made the rounds.
Wow.
Sticking with competitive golf, you may not know, you probably do because it's pretty big news in the world these days. I'm personally planning to attend a mini tour event, future mini tour legend you're speaking to here.
All right.
Will I do well? No. Will I have Reed on the bag? Yes. Will I come dead last? 100%. But the content we'll be creating is going to be great.
Is this going to be live streamed, or this might surpass the match, actually?
That's why I'm going to be live streaming it.
Okay.
okay, if Reed's there, look at that amazing content. It'll just be me shanking it with him like yelling at me. If you were
absolutely
to convince me or someone in my spot to hire you as my agent, what would be your pitch?
Oh, my pitch? Gosh. Well, I tell people I don't really have a pitch. I'm not a used car salesman. I am what I am. I try not to promise anything to anyone, but I'll work my ass off for you. And that's kind of my sales pitch. But I'd have to go out there and see and look and see what the upside was here, and where the development was going to be in the process of my time, and looking at things 2 or 3 years down the road to see where the upside may be there.
Oh, 2 or 3 2 or 3 years down the road, there's no upside.
Well, the upside is you have a lot of room for improvement.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I think by that time, hopefully Hubbs is back competing, and I think probably carrying his bag might be a little bit more lucrative for Reed than coming out with you.
Oh no, Reed's committed to taking my bag. It's going to be during the off season.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll give him something to do.
Yeah, no, I hope he's not going to leave Hubbs to come caddy for me.
Hey, Reed's a good guy. He might do that.
Never know. I got some good shirts.
Yeah, that's got to be your pitch, at least from what I would think, is that you've done, a lot of what these potential clients, players are going to be doing future, throughout their life, or you've been in those spots that they've been in. I feel like that's got to be, a somewhat unique perspective in the industry.
It is, there are a handful of us that, played college golf, some that have played professionally, but the industry as a whole is, it's different from other sports. You look at the NFL draft tonight, an agent is going to sit there, and obviously they've been talking to teams and they're going to negotiate that team contract, but they're not really involved day to day in the practice or in the logistics of travel and all of the things that go into it for those players. You look, the number of NFL guys who end up with corporate endorsements or anything along those lines is very small compared to golf. And so for us, yeah, it's really taken a hands-on approach, and I have to pick and choose. And when it comes to recruiting kids out of college, I look at it somewhere like in Oklahoma State. You have an agency that represents Ricky Fowler, that same agency, Ricky's agent was the recruiter for that agency who recruited Ricky. The coach at Oklahoma State was managed by that same group. So you look at these things and I go, look, like I said, Matt Wolf, I'm friends with Matt, but it would have been a waste of my time to try to recruit him. And you end up with developing different relationships with coaches and players, and what everyone's looking for is sometimes a little bit different. And it's out there, it's no different than being recruited and to play in college or anything like that. You're going around and you're evaluating, you're trying to build relationships, and not everyone pans out, and it's you're betting on horses, and sometimes you choose yours and you say, this is the guy I want, and you may not be able to predict it, but others, you look last year at Colin Morikawa and Wolf and Hovland. Those were expected. They were layups to think that they were going to get to the PGA Tour. Did you think that they would all win as quickly as they did? Maybe not, but you knew they would get there eventually. And so it's really interesting to say who's going to have the greatest career of those. And it seems every week you turn around and Colin Morikawa was at the top of the leaderboard every week for a long time.
Yeah, young talent is 100%. Making their presence known on the PGA Tour, that's for sure.
And I have one final question for you. Now, you said that you had a former teammate that was a coach at Augusta State, Patrick Reed?
Yes, Josh Gregory, yeah.
How much money did Patrick Reed steal from him?
It's not something that I know anything about that. We all know that there are allegations out there. But, and Hubbs would tell you this, because he's, living in Houston, he sees Patrick there some, and you always see different sides of people. And certainly he's a polarizing figure in some of his behavior. Patrick's always been a very nice guy. When I've been around, my teammate Josh Gregory still works as one of Patrick's instructors and works with him to this day. It's, I like Patrick personally myself.
Yeah, no, it wasn't the most serious questions I've asked.
No, but I think it's actually great. Golf needs a villain sometimes.
Yeah,
and he embraces that role. So, any publicity is good publicity, and he brings that to the tour. So there are plenty of nice guys that everyone knows, and you look at Webb Simpson, and he's had an amazing career. And I hate to say it, Webb, as great a player as he is less identifiable to a lot of golf fans than Patrick Reed, because he's the villain. You've got, Webb's one of the nicest guys in the world, but people recognize Patrick and want to go watch him because they want to cheer against him, or they want to see, is he going to do something that people are going to question? And his story's unique and it's different and it's been documented, but it's kind of cool, and that's what makes the game great. We've got so many different personalities out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I agreed. We had Paul Tesori, Webb's caddy, actually on the podcast, and have heard nothing but the best about Webb. He's a great guy. So is Paul.
Well, and that's the thing, people don't realize how good of a player Paul is. He's largely Webb's instructor now, but Paul played the PGA Tour. He was an All-American at Florida, and he was there, I believe, with DeMarco and Brian Gay and some other guys that played the tour, Pat Bates, and he was on an amazing University of Florida program. And so when you look at that and you think about it, you look at Reed and his background of playing at UCF and being a great player, and that's where I think part of it is a lot of guys who are caddies now. It's a career, and they treat it as such. And the idea that people have of a guy carrying the bag, that he's out partying every night and showing up drunk in the morning, that's far from the story. There's too much money for these guys to make, and what other job conceivably can you go out and work 30 weeks a year? And those 30 weeks, you may have Monday off, you may have Wednesday off if you're not in a pro-am and you're outside, and Tuesday is going to be a grind, and you're going to have to deal with some rain and some other stuff, and you might deal with some pros who are, a little harder on you than others. But you can also make a very good living as a caddy doing that, and that's why it's become a business. And I look at it, Reed, and I'm not sitting here trying to fluff him up and give him a big ego or anything, but I look at Mark Hubbard, and I think that the two of them joining up at the start of last year, it was something that was definitely a component that I think has been part of Hub's success. Winning early on the Korn Ferry Tour and having a great season and transitioning right to the PGA Tour, and having some top tens, finishing runner-up in Houston, and having a guy who is mature like Reed, and that he knows is a good player and can potentially envision some of the shots he's trying to hit and things like that. It's been a great thing for both of them, I think.
Yeah, 100% agree there. Well, Nick, we're nearing the end here. I would
all right,
before we get into our trivia question, which I don't know if you've listened or anything, but we like to do a little trivia at the end, and we'll 100% get your participation in it. If you would like to, the stage is yours here. If you want to plug anything, take 30 seconds, take 10 minutes, whatever you want. If you got somewhere we can reach you, other people can reach out to you, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. My company, Resolute Sports, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, try to follow, see what the guys are doing. As I said, I've got some great players that I'm very lucky to work with, from Harry Higgs and Hubbs to Cam Percy, Henrik Norlander, Stuart Appleby, Paul Goydos, down to, I've got some great young players that are coming along just out of college, and unfortunately things are stalled out for them on the, getting the year started in Latin America or things like that. But some guys like an Austin Squires, who was an All-American out of Cincinnati, or Billy Tom Sargent, who came out of Western Kentucky. Some of these guys are maybe a little bit lesser known, but they are going to be great players that you will see in the future. And I've been lucky enough on the women's side. And I encourage people, I think it's interesting because women's golf is so much bigger in Asia than it is here domestically. But, as a guy, there are way more attractive girls playing golf now than there were when I was growing up. girls that would have played tennis or swam or been a cheerleader or a gymnast. Hey, they're playing golf. You know, look at a Sierra Brooks or someone like that, and you see it. And I was fortunate enough to work with Lexi Thompson with my prior agency, and from the time she turned professional. But you know, I've got some girls, Alana Uriel and Cheyenne Knight, on the LPGA tour. That,
yeah, I noticed you guys have a lot of LPGA tour.
Yeah. So it's been good. So having some girls like that, but you know, I encourage anyone that loves golf to get out and go watch these girls, because the way they play the game is absolutely amazing. Because you may sit and go, oh, well, I don't want to watch someone hit a 5-iron from 160 yards. Well, try hitting that 5-iron from 160 yards and still having to cover a bunker and stop it on the green, or you can't do that and you have to play, you know, different angles and do different things. It's really impressive. And a lot of these girls are getting better and better as far as athletes go, of hitting it longer or things like that. But it's amazing. I mean, it really is. And you know, it's something that I encourage everyone to get out and watch. But, you know, as far as things go, I'm lucky to have great clients that trust me to work with them and, you know, follow us on Instagram or Twitter. And I'll try to keep up whatever content you can find out there on that side of things. And, you know, reach out if there's ever a question. I'm always approachable, and anyone that messages through Twitter or Instagram, I'm going to try to follow up and always be available.
That's great. That's great stuff. So guys, bear with me here. This is my first time knocking off the trivia dust here.
We've moved off Canadian trivia because we've completely ran out of quality Canadian questions that aren't.
Canada is a great country, Zach, but I don't know. I guess we're just running dry, or we've done too many podcasts, right?
Well, I mean, I'm going to sit here and tell you that I'm finally I think the last, you know, through the quarantine here, I think I'm on the last 2 episodes of the final season of Letterkenny that's out. So, you know, so I brushed up on my Canadian there over the quarantine.
Okay, well, here goes nothing, guys. So today is April 23rd. I'm from Portland, Oregon, by the way. So I'm a big Portland Trailblazers fan. A year ago today, something big happened in Portland Trailblazer history. Damian Lillard hit a series-clinching deep three-pointer to send the Oklahoma City Thunder home packing, and for the Blazers to move on to the second round. That feat, a game-ending, series-ending shot, has happened how many other times in NBA history? And we're going to give you a multiple choice here.
Okay.
This is
bonus points.
hard.
Yeah, bonus points if you know who else has done it. So yeah, we're just gonna go A, once, B, twice, C, 3 times, or D, 4 times.
This is not including Dame, right?
This is, yes, thank you, Brett. This is not including
Dame shot last year.
Yeah.
I have my answer.
All right, let's let Nick go last since he's our guest. Zach,
okay.
You can kick things off.
I will go with 2. I will name them after the 2 I know.
Okay.
Wow. Were you over here Googling this? Were you Googling this up while you were off the screen?
Yeah, off the screen. I don't think I'm correct, but I feel like I might be. I don't know.
Okay, Brett, what you got?
I know 2's wrong.
Well,
I think it's either happened 4 or 5 times total. I can think of 3 of them. I'm going to say I think it's 4 other times. I think it's 5 total.
Okay. Brett's going with D, 4. Nick?
I was going to say 3 other times, giving 4 total.
Okay.
And as a Portland guy, you know, I've got to go back to the old Portland days of what was it, Clifford Robinson wearing his headband?
Oh yeah, Uncle
it was legendary.
Yeah.
well, I know
great.
Lillard did it against Houston.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not counting that one either.
Cool. What? You're not counting that one either? You can't. That's the other one. That's the whole reason. Because I know Dame did it another time. Kawhi did it in the same playoffs. I know MJ did it, And then I think there was one other. That's what that was.
Well, your non-knowledge actually helped you out, Brett, because you got it right with D4.
Jeez.
I was not including Damian Lillard at all. I meant how many other players had done it.
Oh, that would have been better wording.
Okay.
Who was
wow. Okay.
it?
So what were they?
My first time doing this, and it obviously failed. Ralph Sampson did it back in 1986 for the Houston Rockets. Big time center, huge guy. Michael Jordan did it.
He lives up the road from me, about 20 miles.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Go congratulate him for being rarefied air.
Oh, you see him around sometimes at UVA. He comes to UVA basketball games.
That's awesome. Yeah. Michael Jordan did it against the Cavs in '89. Kawhi Leonard did it just last year. Yeah. And John Stockton did it in 1997. So those are your 4 other players. And Damian Lillard is in, I don't even know what you want to call that, his other hemisphere there. Or, gosh, I'm mixing up terms here. But
It's okay.
Anyway, he's done it twice. The only player to ever done it twice. So, Brett, good job. I'm going to give you that for sure.
I mean, I was kind of wrong, but I guess I got the answer right.
But yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Zach, what else we got going on?
Well, you could check us out on the podcast as usual. You know this is going to be up on YouTube, so you get to see all the great quarantine beards going on. And hope you guys check out our site now, expanded to FromTheStadium.com, where we've got all sports. We know there's a big NFL draft going on. And lastly, just wanted to thank you again, Nick, for coming on and making the time. I know even when quarantine, things could definitely get busy. So.
No, absolutely. And, we're all trying to get through this together. And hopefully we're back before long and I can come back and we can talk about some current events of golf and, and even delve into a little bit more of the business side of sponsorships and that sort of thing. And, I'll let you take some time and put together some questions, maybe some we can get some email inquiries from fans and
for sure
get some business questions put together. Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%. We'd love to have you back on. Well, thanks so much, Nick, and we'll speak to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys.